All right, how are we doing today? Has anyone heard about the Keith Olbermann speech that he gave on Bush most recently? I believe it was this week on MSNBC. It's posted on the internet here, and people have been forwarding it to me all week.
The 5th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks.
He says things like this.
The same man spoke to this nation and insisted, quote, "We must put aside our differences and work together to meet the test that history has given us." Mr. Bush, this is a test you have already failed. If your commitment to put aside differences and work together is replaced in the span of merely 3 weeks by claiming your political opponents prefer to wait to see this country attacked again and by spewing fabrications about what they have said, then the questions your critics need to be asking are no longer about your policies. They are instead solemn and even terrible questions about your fitness to fulfill the responsibilities of your office. Okay,
Mr. Olbermann certainly understands what's going on more than most of the American media. At least he doesn't seem like a lapdog just following the American government around, telling the American people whatever the White House tells them to, which is normally what we get here, although people don't believe it, but unfortunately it's true. Mr. Olbermann seems enraged, and he seems enraged because of what he sees as a failed presidency and a lot of mistakes along the way, and most importantly, a lot of lies and fabrications. So he's angry, and that's cool, because a lot of times those of us that think we're in the know, that we see behind the matrix, we look at guys that are on the television in the suits and everything, you know, the slicksters, the mainstreamers, as if they don't know and we know, and it's just this whole us and them game. And you know, that's really not that accurate of a setup either. So here's the deal. He goes on, and he accuses the president of a lot of stuff, and even accuses, he goes on and talks about the mistakes of Rumsfeld and Cheney and Condoleezza Rice, et cetera, et cetera. It's really, really, really good. Let's go back to Mr. Olbermann being informed. Because remember, in the Happy Columbus Day video episode, I had said that the thing that I always wonder on the rare occasion when I will watch these people is, do they get it and they're just faking it, you know, kind of like playing along, or do they not get it at all? You know what I mean? I said that. It was like a week ago in the Happy Columbus Day episode. It appears that Mr. Olbermann, based on this speech, gets it. I mean, he's not just playing along. He's pissed off. He sees what's going on, and he is now taking precious, valuable, expensive time of MSNBC to rally against the President of the United States. I mean, you really, really got to hand it to him. And if you haven't seen this yet, you got to log on, type it in, Keith Olbermann. It's fabulous. But this is what I wanted to talk about, okay? We're going to go fast because we got to keep it under 10 minutes for YouTube. Yes, we know that George Bush drives us crazy, all right? Yes, we know that he's a renegade cowboy who can't speak in complete sentences and seems to make a lot of grammatical errors in his sentences and mispronounces words and almost seems barbaric in a way. If you remember the G7 meetings where he's like sitting there chewing with his mouth open, talking to Tony Blair, and it seems embarrassing. I mean, one could line up a series, an endless series of adjectives, derogatory adjectives about this current president forever and ever. And I'm with you. I mean, everybody's talking about it, okay? It's the talk of the world, not just of the nation these days. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about what's really happening. Because everybody is so focused right now on George Bush as if he is the man in control. He's the one who got us into the war with Iraq. He's the one who's changing the Constitution. That's one of his biggest gripes, is the fact that we're in the midst of like watching ourselves lose, the most precious commodity that we have here, which is our Constitution, to a president who doesn't seem to really care about preserving it. But I think that we're missing the bigger picture here, and that is that George Bush, or George W. Bush, wouldn't and isn't necessarily a person who is doing this. And even though as much as we want to blame him, because he's an easy target, he's the one being kind of set up like, okay, you're the president, you're the commander-in-chief, you're the leader of the free world, right? There's all these phrases. So one just assumes that he's the one making all these decisions. But let's take it further. Let's think more about it, okay? Who is he answering to? That's really the question that it comes down to. You know, there's a lot of people, if you read their columns, they call it the Cheney administration. They call it the Cheney-Bush administration versus the Bush administration, which is probably a little bit more accurate considering Cheney's past versus Bush's past. Bush had a rather failed past, as you know. His first successes didn't come until he governed the state of Texas. Up until that point, he had failed at just about everything he had done. I think he managed a baseball team or something for a while. Cheney, on the other hand, was a very successful entrepreneur, a very successful businessman, a very successful CEO of one of the largest companies in the world. A company that has questionable business ventures, to be certain. That company being Halliburton, a company largely responsible for getting the no-bid contract in the country of Iraq when we went to invade that country, if you understand what I'm saying. But I wouldn't even say that those people are correct. You can't even call it the Cheney-Bush administration. Who are these men? Who are they responding to? Who are they taking orders from? That's really what it comes down to. Cheney, Bush, Wolfowitz, Rumsfeld, Rice, Congress, senators. So let's break it down. What has history taught us? What has ruled our world since the advent of written human history? What have we seen not only shape history, but what have we seen rule humanity as far as what we've read in history? Let me give you a clue. What rules your life? What rules my life? What determines how many vacations a year do we go on? What determines how many hours a week we work? What determines how large our house is? What determines if you go to that dinner party you were invited to where there's $250 a head ticket? Your wife wants to go, but you're thinking maybe you shouldn't because it's too expensive. So, you see what I mean? What is ruling everything, and what has always ruled everything for us since we've been here, at least through written, recorded history, has been money. It rules our lives, your life and my life, as far as, you know, what we're able to do, what car we're able to drive. When we drive past people that are getting on a bus, it's ruling their lives. That's why they're getting on a bus. You see? Take it bigger, okay? Why did we invade Iraq, but we haven't invaded Darfur yet? We invaded Iraq because Saddam Hussein was a bad man, and, you know, I mean, every reason why we invaded Iraq, for instance, weapons of mass destruction, connections with Al-Qaeda, those turned all out to be lies. Then it came down to, well, he committed genocide on 160,000 of his people, the Kurds up in the north, blah, 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 blah. And yet we're seeing that genocide. We saw it in Rwanda. We did nothing. We're seeing it in Darfur now. We're doing nothing. Why? Now, those are questions that the media is asking. Sometimes I'm too hard on the American media, to be quite honest with you. Because the more and more I'm watching the American media now, I'm starting to see that they are getting it. And they're just as angry as the American people are now with the current administration. But I still think they're missing the point. Everyone's pointing the finger at the White House administration as if they're the people making the decisions. Look at Bush's eyes. Do you really think he's making these decisions? Bush is a rich man. His father is a rich man. They have companies together with the Bin Ladens. I don't know if you know that. Most people know. If you're watching this, you probably know that. They're rich people. But are they the super rich? Are they running the world? No, probably not. The decisions are being made by people who are so wealthy and who are so hidden behind the curtain. We don't even know who they are. And it's not like it's just one person. It's a collection of people. It's a collection of companies and very large corporations that are making these decisions. why we go to Iraq, but we don't invade Darfur. We don't go help Rwanda, for instance. There's millions and millions of examples like this. So let's give some examples. Let's talk about it really, really quickly, and let's end it, and then we can stop blaming Bush. Okay? Because I don't think it's Bush's fault. Yes, Bush can turn around at any moment, stand up, be a man, be a gentleman, turn around to his bosses and say, no, I will not do that. No, I will not lie. No, I will not invade that country. No, I will not erode our Constitution anymore, sirs. But he's not doing it, okay? So in that case, yes, the responsibility falls on him. But it's really not him as far as the overall responsibility, because he's got to be answering to somebody, right? Has to be. I mean, look at him. Look in his eyes. His speeches he doesn't write. Nothing he writes. Mission accomplished he didn't write. None of it he writes. Is any of it being done by him? Or Cheney, or Rumsfeld, or Wolfowitz, or Rice, or any of these other people? No, probably not. It's probably being done by the people that are actually controlling the situation, okay? The people that are behind the scenes. Let's take a look at something called royalty, okay? One day a lot of people collect a lot of wealth, and they decide to call themselves royalty. Now, think about this for a second. Royalty doesn't exist. Think about that for a moment. There's no such thing as royalty. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is he talking about? There's no such thing as royalty. There's no such thing as royalty. They made it up. You see? They made it up. They made it up. Why? Not why, but how were they able to just come up with a concept such as royalty and then all of a sudden get everybody to go along with it? Well, the reason is because they were wealthy. They were the richest people at the time in their country. So imagine the beginnings of royalty when it first started, the concept first started. Now, the first couple of days or weeks or months, it must have been totally crazy for the people. Like, did you hear about the royalty? I hear the royal. And then the next person, probably chipping a stone or whatever. No, I don't know. What's royalty mean? I'm not really sure, but, blah, 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 the richest people, they refer to whomever. They're royal, and we have to do whatever they say, and, they rule our whole little village here, and if we don't do what they say, they're gonna, kill us. And so, for the first couple of months, you can see, first couple of years, as this new meme, this new idea in mass consciousness called royalty comes into play. At first, people don't even know what it is, they're confused, but they do know that if you don't play along with it, you're gonna get killed. You see what I mean? Because then the royalty, the people that call themselves royalty, they send people out on horseback to collect taxes for the king. King, just another thing they make up. And then if you don't pay this guy on the horse the taxes to go to the king, who's supposedly part of this thing called royalty, then again, they could take your kids as slaves, they could take your wife, they could kill you. I mean, that's really the way it was if you read your history. So, hundreds of years later now, we take royalty for granted. We're like, oh, they're royalty. And yet, there is no such thing. They made it up. Now, the reason they were allowed to make that up is because they were the richest people in the world. Because they were the richest people in the world. The richest people in the world. The richest people in the world.